Recently in his Instagram, Magomed Ankalaev said that he will perform at UFC 294, which will be held in October in Abu Dhabi. The most likely opponent will be the fourth number of the rating, Aleksandar Rakic. Hello friends. In today's video I will give a prediction for a potential fight between Magomed Ankalaev and Aleksandar Rakic. But before you start the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and put a like to not miss the next videos. Let's go! Magomed Ankalaev was born in Magomed in 1992 and now he is at his peak, although after each his performance it seems that he is still progressing. Of course, like any representative of Dagestan, Magomed knows how to wrestle. During his studies he was engaged in Greco-Roman wrestling. But later he focused on combat sambo, where he achieved serious successes, namely the title of Master of Sports. Because of a certain similarity between his discipline and MMA, Magomed decided to try himself at the amateur level in mixed martial arts. He tried and won Russian and world championships. And in 2014 began his professional career. 3.5 years, a 10-0 record and an invitation from the Dana White promotion. But the debut turned out to be a sad one. Ankalaev faced Paul Craig, and everything was going well. The Dagestani was taking the fight by decision. But at the very end, the Scotsman caught the Russian fighter in a triangle and finished with a second left in the fight. Magomed took a 6-month break and came back brightly. In half a round he knocked out Praknio, and from there Ankalaev only gained more. The level of opposition was growing, but he continued to show readiness. He knocked out the tough Ion Kutsalaba twice. In the first case there were questions about stopping the fight, but in the second one the referee was rather upset. In February 2021 Magomed had one of the most difficult fights of his career. Nikita Krylov looked great, but the Dagestani took the fight by decision. 6 months later the Dagestani met with the famous Özdemir. 4 years ago, Volkan fought for the title, but could not compete with Ankalaev. Magomed stepped up to the 6th position in the ratings and was challenged by former title challenger Thiago Santos. The fight was a cautious one. The Brazilian showed his class a few times, but the final victory of Magomed was no question. Dagestan got another former challenger, Anthony Smith. Anthony could not really oppose Ankalaev and in the middle of the second round was finished. 9 wins in a row and the question of who would fight for the vacant title wasn't even an issue. Last December he faced Jan Blachowicz for the vacant champion title at the UFC 282 tournament. However, Magomed did not manage to win the title, as the judges considered it a draw. Aleksandar Rakic was born in Vienna and is an Austrian citizen, although it is not hard to guess that he is an ethnic Serb. His nickname is Rakic, and he broke into the world's premier promotion accordingly. Alex started with kickboxing and boxing, where he fought 40 fights, and then in 2011 the 19-year-old Rakic decided to try his hand at MMA. It came out unsuccessfully. Already at the end of the first round, he was caught in a guillotine and lost. But Alexander was gaining experience, and with that he gained victories. 8-1, that was his record at the time of his invitation from the UFC. Moreover, all victories, Rakic won early, but already in his debut fight at the elite level he went to a decision, although he won. That's also how the Austrian's next fight ended, after which we saw a different Alex. Devin Clark and Jimmy Manoa. Rakic was knocked out in the first rounds, then fans started to look up to him. Volkan Özdemir was the young fighter's next opponent, and this fight is probably the UFC's main heist of 2019. How 2 judges were able to see the Swiss win is still a mystery. Rakic lost and came back again, the same pragmatic puncher who prefers to fight at a distance. Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos were beaten without options, but again by decision. Then in a challenger fight against Jan Blachowicz he lost by TKO in the 3rd round due to injury. Let's start with Aleksandar Rakic's punching technique. The Austrian has had many fights in boxing and kickboxing. These are skills that he uses in MMA. He has good footwork and also delivers strikes to the target at distances. He also has punching power, which he showed in fights against Manoa and Clark. In the fight with Blachowicz he won in the stand-up, but lost due to a knee injury. Now let's move on to Magomed Ankalaev. In his last fight, he surprised a lot of people in a negative way. Everyone was expecting him to declass him, to destroy Blachowicz, but in the end he kicked him in the leg and Jan easily outworked the Dagestani. Magomed's last fight really screwed up all his regalia before, and now it is unclear what he will be like next. He is going to correct his mistakes and fight like he did against Anthony Smith, or he is going to show again the same version of himself as he did against Blachowicz. We can only speculate about that. But in my opinion, it was not a very good night for Magomed. Something may have happened or something like that. What about favorite? I think Rakic will be the favorite here because of his kickboxing and boxing skills. Let's start with Ankalaev wrestling skills. Magomed is really good in this area. It was his skills on the bottom floor that helped him bring the fight to at least a draw. In the light heavyweight division, I don't know anyone else who could fight so well and possibly overpower Magomed. Though his base was and still is the stand-up, in critical situations he uses wrestling. As an example, I can safely mention the fight with January. As a result of numerous low kicks thrown by the pole, Magomed could not stand firmly on his feet, and he had to move Blachowicz to have a break and control the fight for the remaining time. This was not an isolated incident. More than once he moved and controlled his opponents. As far as parterre and everything else goes, he's just as good. The only thing he doesn't use is the painful hold, but otherwise he's unstoppable. Now let's get to Rakic's wrestling. Aleksandar doesn't really use his wrestling in fights. He prefers to fight only in the stand-up. In his career, he only once won by choke, but that was a long time ago. And he lost his first fight in MMA by submission. What about the favorite? I think Magomed Ankalaev will be the clear favorite here. If there are difficulties in the stand-up, he will be able to put Rakic on canavas and control him throughout the fight. I think it will be a competitive fight in the stand-up, but not in the wrestling. Ankalaev's team will take into account the danger in the stand-up and tell Magomed to move Rakic and control him throughout the fight, like he did in the Blachowicz fight. If we take into account that the fight will be a 3-round fight, then Magomed's cardio can easily go the distance by controlling on the canvas. What do you think, friends? Write your opinions in the comments. Bye, everybody.